Van is obviously a great coach.
Got to do it with supreme focus, right? With razor sharp focus. Breathe what he's breathing.
But he's a better person.
Biggest thing you gave me was time. You didn't really know me. We were from the same neighborhood and area, but I was with a group of guys that wanted to go to college, wanted to play ball, and you actually gave us that reality that, hey, this could actually happen because we saw somebody that was like us and that we wanted to become.
Only thing that matters is you come out here, play after play, and that you play with each other. That's what matters.
Recruiting is about relationships. It's built on trust. It's built on doing the right things. And it's built on your head coaches and your athletic director, their vision. And I think we have two great leaders, both of those positions. So it makes it easy for me to go out and do what I do.
Be aggressive. Let's win. Here we go.
And tonight we have a special guest, a guest who has been around the block in the administrative circles, who has had a career, a fantastic career, starting as a student athlete, but now an administrator in college athletics, and we'll get to that. Erin Mykleby, I'm so excited to have you. Just so you know, and our guest and our viewers know that this podcast is one where we discuss leadership. And it's been really an enlightening experience for me, because what I've learned, what I've seen is that leaders, no matter what organization they represent, no matter what organization they lead, for the most part, they are pushing in the same direction, right? And it's the way they say it, right? It's the way they approach conflict. It's the way they communicate during tough times that make them one over another in terms of a better leader. Yeah. So we'll jump right in. And I want to talk to you because we've had a few former student athletes on our podcast. So I want to talk to you about your journey from former swimmer, right? I believe softball player as well, yep. to becoming an assistant AD. Was that what you always wanted to do? Was that the vision that you saw way back when?
I know sometimes it's hard to think back that far now that I've had such great experiences, but yes and no. I mean, I really think the leaders that I had and the coaches that I met throughout my career as a student athlete really helped shape me into finding my passion and my vision of what I wanted to do and impact the world. So it wasn't, that story, you wake up one day and I knew everything and had all the answers. I started off as an educator, and that's how I believe, I'm a great administrator because I love to educate others. And that's really what it's about, particularly in the development role. You're educating people about how they can impact, a very special, sacred university or program. And that's really what brings me joy. So I found really early on that I loved working with coaches. I loved being a student athlete. I was super sad when that experience was over, although it was much different when I was a student athlete. And obviously now the student athlete voice has never been stronger. And I think that's something to celebrate. Finding that voice and what that looks like, I think is something that I really am looking forward to continuing the trek and using all my skills to better that opportunity, because, to me, higher education is the most important thing. So I wouldn't have been able to go to college if I didn't have, the opportunity to play a sport and to get the scholarships and to meet the people that help shape me who I am today. I mean, as you know, teammates shape your lives in positive ways, negative ways, but it's up to you to figure out how you want to utilize that. And I think for me, that was one of the most amazing experiences too. So I love being a part of a team. And I think an athletics department is also another great team to be a part of when you have a good captain and some good morals and some really good people that make it really enjoyable.
Great. So this question, it's kind of off the beaten path, but we've I always like to ask administrators this question, and especially administrators who have heard the roar of the crowd. So
Mm.
when you were a student athlete, that was the thing that might have driven you. And so now, when you in the world that you live in now, what is the roar of the crowd for you now? What makes it all a special day? What makes it happen for you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, right? So I think early on in my career, I was really passionate about the student athletes, and I still am today. I mean, that's my why, that's what I do. But now I don't get to work with the student athletes as much. And I'll be honest, even working in New Mexico, I have a harder time even seeing them practice and
Right.
going to things. So
Right.
for me, the voice, or what motivates me each day, is kind of what you alluded to at the very beginning. It is that leadership component, and like you said, leadership is a process, and it is something that I've worked really hard on to not only better myself, but better those around me, or better those people that invest in me. And so I really think of it as that's really what college athletics is, or student athletes. That's what they're doing each day, is working on their leadership, to help better their careers down the road, not only personally but professionally. And so that's, for me, the leadership aspect. I wake up every day, get my workout in, right? Like, we have those routines that have helped me be successful. And even working with younger generations, trying to find what works for them. Not every
Right.
leadership style is the same. I prefer to really hone in on my servant leadership skills, and that's really, what works for me. But there's a lot of different ways to lead. And I think I learned that through my experience as a student athlete, that I, had other teammates that were great leaders, but they were not the same leadership style as me. So how can I kind of use my growth mindset to get, the best out of that experience with them, without being, judgmental or stuck in my ways. I really
Right.
looked at it as a way to pivot. And I think that's what's helped me be successful in this career today, because of the adaptability that I think a good leader has to have.
You spoke on that just a second ago on teaching young people, and in your world of administration, of leadership, you you're not dealing with, like you said, you're not dealing with the student athletes, but
Mhm.
you're dealing with young administrators. You're dealing
Right,
with people who want to be doing what you do.
right,
Well, it's like I said, it's cool that you mentioned that, because here at Kansas State, we just finished spring, and I happen to have the opportunity in my role as assistant head coach to
right,
to be a part of the head coaching meetings. And so in my moment during that head coaching meeting, that's kind of what I do with our players, is I talk to them about leading. I talk to them about leadership. And you talked about the different styles. And I try to stress to them that, listen, you can't approach each player the same
right,
way, right? There's some guys you can yell at, and they're gonna shut it down, right?
right,
So it's important that the leader find, that's why you're the leader, right? You have the responsibility to find out what makes each person tick, to
right,
find out what are his buttons. I don't want to push the wrong buttons. Oh, this is John. I have to talk to John about his family, right? I have to talk to Carl about doing, the fact that they doubted you, you know what I mean? And so a leader has to know the buttons. And I think just like I said, our players, that's what makes you different.
right,
Well, speaking of different, I always talk to younger coaches, older coaches, that sometimes, about the fact that where we are today in talking about coaching and talking about administration, even, that there is strength in diversity, right?
right,
There's strength in viewing things from a broad spectrum, from seeing things from different perspectives. Well, you've done a lot of work in the areas of diversity and inclusion. What drives you in that way, and what things do you think we in the sports world could do to make it even better, not just for the sports world, but for our society as a whole?
Yeah. It's my personal belief that I have a moral obligation to make this world a better place. And I've been very blessed through my upbringing, my education. Being a farm girl from Iowa, I didn't have a lot of diversity growing up. And then when I went to college, that allowed me to really open up my eyes. But I was blessed to grow up in a family that accepted a lot of different dialogues and a lot of different perspectives. So I felt very, very welcoming to be who I was. And so when I really found out, by my interactions and just hearing people's stories that, not everyone grew up like me, right? That really lit a fire under me. And it really, again, became, like I said, more of a moral obligation that I felt a true calling to get involved and to talk. And, I really do think that the biggest thing you can do is have the conversation. A lot of times I think we are afraid to have the conversation, and I've always tried to lean in. And you have to do it in an appropriate way. So you talk about the different leadership styles, different approach to different people about, certain topics is something that you kind of have to learn. But I really do think that it's as an administrator, it's a super important part of my job, and everyone should, take an interest if they're sitting in the chair, so to speak, or helping make decisions in the athletic department. Not only for those that are, underrepresented, but people that are not like you can't assume that you know what's best for them without educating yourself the best you can. So being a perpetual learner is, in my opinion, one of the greatest things you can do to help in that area of diversity and inclusion. And it's everyone's responsibility to do that. And how involved you want to be, if you have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or that's something that you make a priority every day. That's what I love to talk about with people, and see how easily you can streamline that into your daily lifestyle. Just like I said, having those routines, how important that can be to have it more of your mantra or your personal brand. That I love working with younger students, like you said, on how to do that effectively, and also that works for them. I've really had a great opportunity, like you have, I'm sure, with great leaders and mentors in your career. And I think, like Stan Johnson, who works with MOA, the Minorities Opportunity Athletic Association, they're really the ones that accepted me from day one. And, I accepted them, and we've had such a great dialogue there that it's been almost very natural for me, and wanting more of that in the college athletics world, because you talked about what we can do differently. It's doing podcasts like these. It's having, people that wouldn't likely have a conversation and some candid banter back and forth that's a positive and genuine. That's how you change the world, is by sharing your story, what you've done, how you got there, and hopefully inspiring others to not be like you, but find what works for them in the space that they have.
So what you did is you put a lot right in a box, right? And so in my mind, I'm trying to unpack it, but I will eventually, right? The great thing about these podcasts is that, I go back and I watch them again, and I take all these notes. And again, they were very scripted at the start, right. but because the discussion that we have right here, the points that you bring up right here, they flow out so easily, because again, this is what we're dealing with today. I go back to something you said a second ago, when you talk about dealing with the elephant in the room, right? Well, the only way you deal with the elephant is you face him, right? You go right to him. And another point that you made is that you are here to change the world. And hey, how you doing? I'm here for that same reason.
But so are you, right?
That's what I say that all the time, that is why I'm here. But see, like, people think that means you have to invent a new light bulb, or you have to do. No, we change the world because we influence people. So what I do is I coach the young man who will one day have a son, who will have a daughter, who will teach the person that will invent something groundbreaking, right? Or the person who will find the cure to cancer. It'll come through me, and it'll be the ideals that I taught that young man and that he'll teach his son, and they'll pass down. And so in 92 years, it'll be something that I did, and so that's the way I look at it. And when we talk about having diverse programs, you're talking in the world of college football and in the world of college sports, it gives us the opportunities to do it. It gives us a greater opportunity to do that. I've talked about this a few times, when it's time to choose a new coach, right? The first thing people do is they choose, because when you're choosing a new coach, basketball, football, any sport, that's a stressful moment, right? And so when you come upon a stressful moment, what do? We go right back to what we're familiar with, with what we know, with what is like us. So people criticize administrators quite a bit, but it's almost a natural thing to go back to what you know, right? It's more challenging to say, wait a minute, I know what we had. We had an offensive coach when you talk about football, and that's what we like. We like an offensive coach. Guess what? How about trying a defensive coach this time? Well, wait a minute. We just lost our coach. We're in shambles right now. We got to go back to what is familiar. Well, I think the challenge, the encouragement has to be, wait, let's look at this from a different light, from a different view, from a different vision, and make decisions based off of that. Speaking of different views and different lights, let's talk about 2020. 2020 was quite a challenge. And guess what? As we roll into 2021, that was a challenge as well. Things are getting better. But when you think about COVID and all the protocols that still go, they're not as major as what we saw in 2020. But then you think about the social justice initiatives and all the things that went around that, and they're still, and they should be still in discussion. How did 2020 and 2021, for a small part, how did this moment make you a better leader?
It wasn't easy. I think every person has their own different struggles with COVID or struggles with adversity. So really, for me, it was finding how I could survive and how I could thrive. So it wasn't something that happened overnight. Again, it took some self-reflection. I think that's a big part of leadership and being successful, is knowing yourself. Knowing how you operate in stressful situations, like you said, because you are going to go to your tendencies, and being as our jobs as coaches or administrators is to be problem solvers. That's really what I went back and reached into my quiver and brought out, my weapons of choice to kind of go through it. And it was really leaning on other people. And I think that's what good leadership is as well, is knowing who to go to at times of need, know who builds your army and your squad up to, maybe you're not so good at some things, but you have a really, close ally that is, and you trust them. So it was definitely that ebb and flow at starting off. And then I think what really kind of made me very anxious was it wasn't ending, right? So at first when COVID hit, you're like, okay, like I can do this maybe for a while,
right?
But it just kept going, and it just kept going and going. And, every time I'd get a little win, I'd get, some kind of blowback, and you're like, okay, let's reassess. But, I'm a metaphoric person, right? I love to have certain visual images that I manifest and speak into existence. So just keep chopping. I mean, there's a lot of those out there, but I really am a firm believer of persistence, in terms of you have to be willing to do things that you don't want to do sometimes to get the results that you want to see. So that's a big part of it. It's believing that you can do it. It's having a deep faith I think, I would not be able to do what I do for a living if I didn't have some sort of deeper meaning of life and relationships, and have a relationship with Jesus Christ and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of looking at what you have and making the best out of it. And if you don't want what you have, it's how are you going to work for it and get what it is that you need to be successful. And no one else can tell you that. And I think that's what I've learned growing up too, is as someone that loves to work with others, just because I see it in them, or that's what I think they would be really good at. That might not always be the case, but I think it's very important to have those candid conversations with those, people and those young minds that are just looking and searching for things to really connect to, because you never know what you're going to gravitate to. You never know what opportunity is going to be presented to you. But I like to better my odds. So working hard and showing up on time and doing some of those things that take, zero amount of real grit. It's just doing the little things well. And I think that's what COVID has taught me is that, when things get rough and it hits the fan, are you going to stand, or are you going to sit in your bed and you're going to, just kind of, like you said, not address the elephant in the room or address the really hard situation? It's standing up to it, owning who you are as a person. I think that was a big part of leadership, right? As you, I remember, being very young and almost wanting to like hide my personality because I felt like, it wasn't helpful all the time, and I think that was really hard for me to realize, how to turn the light on and turn it off and dim yourself. Yes. I used to think of it as like suppressing, but it's more of making people feel comfortable. And I think that's really a big part of what we do is just really thinking about how we can better the situation and the team environment that we're in to get the optimal results and push that needle forward.
You talked earlier about servant leadership, and then you talked about dimming yourself. I never used that term, dimming myself, but you have to, as a leader. When I was at SMU as a defensive coordinator, one of the guys who was on the defensive staff with me, he said something that I never heard a coach. Of course, coaches, we're macho, right? We don't love anybody. We coach, right? We just have whistles. Well, he said something, not necessarily to me, but I think I heard it in an interview that he did. And he said, it's my job to make Coach Malone, to do everything I can so that Coach Malone can be the best defensive coordinator that he can be. And it's my job to push him to that. And I never heard a coach say, now, this guy happens to be one of my best friends, but
yes,
but still, as a coach, for him to say that, it made me realize, yes, that's what we all do. But really, as the leader, you have to be doing the same thing for him. Like so many leaders, like, come on, let's go serve me. You serve me.
Right.
Well, it's not until the dynamic, the triangle, the leader serves the follower serves the leader serves. It's not until you operate in that way that you find true success. You find true fulfillment as a leader. Right. And like I said, I think it's very difficult for average leaders to serve. Great leaders, they understand that dynamic.
Right. Well, it's communication. And even to hearing you describe that story, right? He said it to you, you said it to him. It's how you perceive that relationship and that communication. And so being overly, able to communicate, even with people that you might not want to communicate, right, I think makes good leaders as well. Because, we are humans. I think that's the beautiful part about it. That's what makes America so great. And this world that we live in is that, there are such different ways of living and,
right,
and finding fulfillment, like you talked about, that it's exciting for me to hear how other people do that. But the one thing that I think any coach, or like you said, leader, needs to be a professional and really have a good grasp on is that communication piece. And now that's changing, right? All the different channels of communication are changing. It's, the social medias, and right, now, we're forced to communicate via Zoom. But for me, it's not using that as an excuse, right? I think a lot of time what COVID has done is it has allowed us to make an excuse for anything. You can use COVID as an excuse for anything in any relationship, any situation, as to why something didn't happen because of COVID. And I think that's what I've learned too through this process is I don't want to blame COVID for that. I want to use COVID as through COVID, I did this, through COVID against all odds, I was able to raise this amount of money or, be able to connect with people through a screen that I've never even had a personal, relationship with, where I used to take them out and, I was able to really feel present and impactful, but you can still do that. And I think that's what, the younger generation has done a great job too, is using how to pivot and to go to classes virtually. I mean, I just think the way that we communicate now is very different. And I am very blessed to be able to have that opportunity to learn, right? This year of 2020-21 has never happened, right, to any of us. So, it's really cool when my athletic director asked me for my opinion and he's like, you and I are the same on this, right? Like, I don't have years of experience over you. You have been through this with me since day one here, like, I think it was really cool to see how I could use that as an level playing field, and not always have it be, well, you haven't been able to do that, or that hasn't come in your career yet. Well, that's great, but here's what I have done. And this is how I think, we could connect this and make this situation better. So it's like you said, looking at all angles, and staying positive. You have to be positive. And that doesn't mean being fake and if things aren't going well, just brushing them under the rug and keep on going. But your attitude, you can definitely keep under check and in control. But it's not easy. So again, it's doing things that you don't want to do at certain times, but you have to get those, you have to do it to get those results that you want to see.
Right. This is, again, off the beaten path, but for what you do to be able to get it done on Zoom in terms of raising money, establishing relationships, I think that's pretty much amazing, because it'd be very difficult for me to give money on Zoom.
Well, Coach, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how you recruit on Zoom, right? And I think I look at it like that way. When I talk to my coaches about it, they're like, how do you do it? And I said, how do you do it?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, because, we have players who are on our team. Some early enrollees,
Mm-hmm.
they never came on an official visit.
Right.
And so through Zoom and through writing notes and calls and, using all those social media platforms, is what we did. Just like you just made that point. We have guys who have not arrived on campus yet, but I've never seen them in person, and neither have they seen me, and neither have they seen the campus. They've walked around on phones, through the campus.
It's trust, right? It's that consistency. It's the ability to show them a vision with, like you said, blindly, basically.
Right.
That leads back to faith, and it leads back to, the way you treat people and first impressions. I mean, there are, like I said, those things that really add up quickly. But it is that transparency piece as well. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed getting to know you and a lot of coaches, is you have to be transparent. Same way with when I'm working with people and I'm talking with them about how to use their money, right, in an impactful way, right? There's a level of trust and transparency there that you have to have from the day you meet them, and keep it going. You can't be inconsistent. It's just, you've got to be, sort of that level-headed, positive, calm person. But like you said, also know when you got to kick it up in gear and get things done. So it's definitely a balance game that we've all had to really overanalyze, in my opinion, through the tough times that we've had. And it looks like, things are getting better, but they can really, really decline quickly. And who knows what the next thing is going to be, but how can you use, this situation to be prepared? And I think that's what you and I are both trying to have, that game book ready for the next sort of big crisis that we didn't quite plan for. How can we be better in that situation?
Well, in the era of transparency, Here's what I know. I know that you're going to have a great career as an administrator, right? But it's going to be based off of some of the things that have happened in your past. And it's going to be based off of some of the great people that have happened in your past. And so what I want to do right now is ask you about just one. I know you've had many, but just one of the leaders who have had an impact on you. And what did that person teach you that we can learn from?
I know I had to choose just one, and it's hard, right? Because I think as a female, you know, I've had such great male mentors, such great female mentors. Women Leaders in College Sports has been one of the greatest associations that I've been able to work with, only because they're willing to, like you said, invest in that mentorship and know how important it is. But there really is one leader, and I am not just saying this because you work at K-State, but Gene Taylor, the athletic director at K-State, I met him when I was at Iowa. I had just left as a student athlete. He came in as the deputy. He said he's worked with you actually prior to, right? And so when he told me that, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's such a small world, but that's how leadership works, right? Good people find good people. And so what makes Gene Taylor such a great leader, in my opinion, is he took me under his wing, and now, you know, his circle of friends and his people that he goes to and calls and when things are rough and, you know, that sort of thing, I've now been able to build a relationship with. And I feel so blessed to have, you know, these people that not only look out for me and know that, you know, I'm a few years younger, but I'm up and coming, but treat me as an adult, and they want to see me succeed. And so it's inviting me to events that they know I'm gonna, you know, have a conversation with someone, and they're putting me in the best light. You know, they're not holding my hand through it. And I think that's what I learned early on in my career too, is you can have the greatest support system, but no one is at your university with you the whole time that understands the different, you know, dynamics and the politics that go along with it. So you can listen to their advice to a T, but you have to make it your own. So I think that's really what Gene does a nice job of as well. I've really enjoyed continuing that relationship, and it's changed quite a bit since, you know, I was an intern at NACTA, you know, starting off after that. And now, you know, I'm assistant AD for development at a Division I school. And it's been quite the transition for me to grow into my own and not, you know that I'm not perfect. I think that's the biggest part too, as anyone who's starting off in their career. But you called me a veteran as you know, you were introducing me, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I have been around. I've worked, you know, at some really cool institutions. I've sought out groups that align with my morals and my passion, to educate myself, to get better, to, yes, one day I want to sit in that AD's chair. I want to be in charge and make those really tough decisions, make those great hires that are going to change student athletes' lives. But that's a responsibility, you know, like that is not something you take lightly. And I think the more people you can find, like the Gene Taylors and some of these other great ADs that have found a way to do it, there's just such a great story there that I want to learn from. I want more of it, you know, like I want to know why he did this, or how did he get an extension? Like, you know, tell me what I need to know, because I'm just a perpetual learner in that way. But again, it's being a great connector too. And that's why I've really enjoyed getting to know you as well.
Now, you spoke of Gene, and my reaction was like, please, yes, of course, I know. If you know Gene, yes, I agree.
Well, I had to vet you. Come on, yeah, I had to know all the dirt. I had
understand to, you know, it. Well, Gene
you
has
sent me his podcast too, so I was like, hey, he's gonna let me know what I need to brush up on. And you want to know what was cool? When I asked him for advice, he said, Erin, I just want you to be yourself. And I think, you know, that's what's really cool about, you know, good leaderships too, is that they know you're going to shine the best. Right. If you're not trying to emulate anything else, or you know, look at my notes before this, like it's off the cuff. It's who I am, and that's what I want to, you know, give off is those and
that's leadership. Mm-hmm. That's how, again, You're going to be a great AD one of these days. But
I'm gonna have a few gray hairs, I think.
well,
But
that's a part of it. That's a part of it. And you speak on that. So as an assistant coach, you don't care about, you only care about your running back group or your offensive line group. You don't care about anything else. Yeah, you care about these kids, but you're single-minded. You have a single-minded focus. Well, for me, having the opportunity to, and the title of assistant head coach, I've seen that title passed out over the years, just
Right.
pass it out, to keep a guy from leaving. But one of the first, when Coach Kleiman promoted me to that position, the very same day he said, now I have a meeting with Gene. We're talking about the COVID protocols. And I was like, good luck. He's like, no, you're coming. And since that day, since that moment, I have learned he's given me responsibilities to help me learn. I've run staff meetings, and you learn the great responsibility that comes with that seat. Yes, everyone wants to be a part. Everyone wants to do the game-winning interview. Everyone wants to make the call that scores the touchdown. But what do you do in the tough times, the tough moments, like we talked about, COVID, social justice initiatives, all the different things that the head coach deals with that no assistant coach ever knew even existed? There's something with that. And so the same world that you live in, you say, I want to sit in that seat. There's a lot that happens in that seat, but when you're ready, and when you operate like you talked about, when you operate with a genuine spirit, when you are you, because leaders, they have it, they just have it. They walk into the room and they can calm the room, right? And during these COVID moments, that's what Gene talked about. Gene talked about the communication. He talked about the fact that when everything is going crazy, he wanted to be out front. He wanted to be out front. And, I was watching one of the news outlets, what's going on in Minnesota. And of course, everyone can say what's going on, but I'm watching the people in the leadership positions. I'm watching how they handle the questions which are coming at them. So, guess what? They were not there. You're banging the guy over the head and he was not there. Okay. So there's leadership. There's a moment at the highest level of stress. Who are you in that moment, leader? Yeah. And I think that, again, everyone wants that position. Everyone wants it, but you have to prepare yourself for those moments, because doing the press conference when you win a national championship, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's the one that you don't want to have. It's the difficult discussions. So speaking of what comes along with sitting in that seat, when you think of hiring a staff, when you think of putting the right people on your bus, what are the processes that you go through when thinking of hiring a staff, when thinking of putting people around you to support you in that way? How do you make those decisions?
It is something that I really take a lot of pride in, and who's ever on my bus or whoever bus I'm on, I wear that like a badge of honor. And that's not name dropping every AD that it's not, I don't like when people use the word, networking and schmoozing, but it's who can you turn to, or have that genuine texting or calling relationship that's reciprocal. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I really do think that the people that I want on my team, eventually one day, or whose ever team I would like to be a part of, has some non-negotiables that through my experiences, I have learned that, that's something that I really need to be successful. And so, as I sit here, as a 30-year-old administrator, having a woman that's above me, that's able to teach me some things about how to be a woman in this industry, I've learned is very important to me, right? Or I've learned that having a diverse group in the senior staffs, or the ones that are helping make those decisions, is important as well. And that's race, and that's gender. Looking at all those things and making sure that we're having representation all across the table, and we're having an ability to have a conversation about how important this hire is and what it could do to our student athletes experience, because that's really what we've turned into in college athletics. Is we really are striving to make that student athlete experience better, and the way we do that is by having people in those leadership roles have the training in diversity, are up on current policies and current happenings in the world, and talking about social injustice. It does take some time to educate people, and I love seeing the outcry and the some of the things that athletic departments have been doing. But it's more than posting a statement talking about your stance on diversity. It's more than naming a diversity officer at that school. And I think you brought up the whole title thing. You cannot get caught up in titles. You have to understand and really push for that role. Is what are you doing in that role? That's what's most important. I don't care, and we talk about this in with our student athletes too. Everyone plays a part, but you have to learn to speak your truth and lean on that voice that's crying and telling you to speak up, and not be afraid of that. And I think, that's when I said the student athlete voice has never been stronger. That is, I'm proud to work in that era, and I'm proud to see the progress that we've made. While, action to me is more important than anything else. I do feel and believe the best in people. And I think that's what helps me be a good leader as well, is when times do get really tough, I like to think that people are good and try to make the best decisions. While that's not always the case, I can't go through life thinking the opposite, because that's just, not healthy, not helpful. And I believe that this world and our university can be the best place there is. And I think that's what's really cool about college athletics. Is you're right, it has that platform to just be so magnificent. I can see it, I can taste it, I want to do it, but I can't do it alone. And that's why those people on your team need to be on board, need to believe in that mission, and be all in. I mean, yes, you can have disagreements, but outward facing, you have to be a united front. And I think that's where you do a nice job with your team and your student athletes, is having that openness to be themselves, but also be a part of this bigger change.
You talked about networking, right? And I never liked the term, well, network, I don't know, whatever. To me, it is about relationship building. Mm-hmm. And it goes to what we talked earlier about recruiting. That's about recruiting is about relationships. Right. Gaining support of donors is about relationships, is about trust. And when you talk about, growing your friend circle, mm-hmm. That's relationships. I had a Ed Stewart. Ed Stewart is one of the big wigs. I always calls him at the Big 12. And when mm-hmm. I was a young coach, Ed did one of the NCAA academies, and Ed got up and he talked to us, and he did the best he could to train us. But one of the final things Ed said is, now listen, any one of you guys can call me for anything. And, as you go through your career, if you need me, you need me to call someone about you to help you with a job, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. He said, but I won't do that if I don't know you. Mm-hmm. And because you sat in this audience, I don't know you. And if you don't create a relationship with me, then the opportunity for you to call me to help me, right, to have me help you with a job, that opportunity is not there because I don't know you. And I said, you know what? I like this guy, and I'm going to get to know this guy. So what I did is I emailed him, And I said, hey, Ed, what you said up there, I don't know you. We're from two different worlds, but I like reading leadership books. And he said, you know what? I do too. And so since then, I don't know, it was 2005. Since 2005, Ed and I, we exchanged leadership books. Now we've grown a friendship over the years, of course, but it started with just exchanging for about 2 or 3 years, just exchanging, hey, Ed, I read this leadership book. Hey, Van, I read this one. And we would exchange leadership books, you know, for 2 or 3 years. And then we text a little bit more.
Right.
And then we talk on the phone. And then, you know, as I've worked at different Big 12 schools, I see Ed on the sidelines. We talk, we check on each other's families. And so now, you know, I honestly believe, hey, Ed, I like to call. I need your help.
Right.
You know, he might call for me. So
but you put in the work, right? And
exactly.
You did it with a genuine touch to it. It's not what could he do for you in the next couple days. You know, you genuinely found a common interest.
Right.
And that's what I think good leaders do as well. You know, is sending that article that you read before bed. Just say, hey, I thought of you tonight as I read this. You know, it's something as easy as that. Or you talked about handwritten notes, like those things really go a long way. And they build beautiful relationships. Like that's a beautiful story that now you have so many years of history together. You know, it's so cool to think about, you know, where you started and where you are now.
Right. Well, and again, it's about just the relationship. I think as I've talked to many young coaches and, you know, we talked about networking, right? The lack of confidence to do that. Most really great leaders, they want to help others, right? I'll tell guys, I'll say, listen, if you contact someone and they don't contact you back, just keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because someone else, that means that person is not ready to help you. That person is not ready for what you need. Again, I had a guy, a young coach, he only contacted me when he needed me to call for a job, just kind of like Ed. And I didn't put it out there as bluntly as Ed did, but I said, listen, man, I have known you over the years. I am willing to help you do whatever you want to do, but someone else may not have the same patience that I have. So I encourage you to, in your other relationships, not mine, because I accept you for who you are. You're going to only call me when you need something. I already know that. But with people in the future, you need to understand they have higher expectations than I do, because I'm going to help you no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm going to help, but other people may require more of you if you want them to help you. And so that's kind of the way I do it now. Like, not as bluntly as Ed.
Oh, that's spot on. I resonate with that. And I'm a firm believer that not everyone is meant to be in your life forever. There are those people that, you know, see the whole journey. There are those that help you get there along the way. And I think maintaining relationships is very important, especially in this career or as a student athlete, right? But it's okay to outgrow certain relationships that aren't feeding your soul the way that you need them to. And it's no slide to you or the other person. It's like you said, keep it moving, right? Like just push it forward, you know, look at what you have and what's in front of you, learn from the past, you know, move on appropriately. But there are so many people, like you said, that want to help, but it's finding the right alignment at the right time. Right.
Well, this is my final question. We can't stay together forever.
No.
Eventually, my Zoom battery runs out. But this question is not a difficult one. I guess sometimes it's hard for people to admit to that they don't have all the answers. But when you look back on your life, and I know you are young at this moment, but what would you tell a younger Erin about how you're going to be living today, right? How would you educate yourself 15 years ago, things that you know now? what would you tell yourself to operate differently?
To be kind to myself. I think as we all grow up, you know, as with my experience as an athlete, right? I've always had that competitive bone in my body. I've always wanted to be the best. You know, I've always wanted to be the best Erin I could be, whether that was in this classroom or on the field, in the pool. Like that was just something that drove me. I just wanted to be the best. And, you know, I think as I started off, I wasn't the best, right? I had some really great qualities and, you know, I had some really great people telling me how good I was doing or, you know, some really good opportunities that I was succeeding at. But I was overlooking them with all the things that I couldn't do. So I think really important is you look to someone that would be my younger self. It is to have that that kindness and that gratitude, to just be blessed to be where you're presently at and making an impact where you are. I think a lot of times, especially nowadays with the transfer portals and administrators jumping from job to job, I'm all about the best people having the best opportunities. And what does that look like? That's totally up to the individual. But being present, doing a great job where you are, says a lot about you, and who you are as a leader and how you invest in people. So I've really learned to take that with more of me in terms of I want to be the best I can be and make an impact. And I actually, if we have time, I have one question that I want to ask you. It's how do you know you're making an impact at your university or at your school? How do you know you're doing it there at your current place? Because I think that's so important, you know, being involved. I love that you've really done a great job at connecting coaches and administrators, because I think that's really going to be a blessing down the road when, you know, we're trying to do these hires and get those people on the bus. Is that connection piece. But making an impact where you are is the most important thing that you can do as a leader. And then how do you take that and disseminate it to your colleagues and your friends and your soon-to-be friends? That's the thing that I really like to do, is making an impact where I am, and then how do I use that to help others in the same situation?
For me, to answer your question, it actually is right along with what you said. You know, you spoke of being kind, but we have the transfer portal because young people are not content, right? We have coaches jumping and going here and there because they're not content where they are. And like you said, everybody has their own path, their own goals. We all have that. But, you know, in many instances, you know, when you make the place you are, when you decide that this is it, I'm going to make this it, be it wherever it might be. You know, I've had the opportunity to coach on some teams that were not very successful. Mm-hmm. And there's an opportunity. And the reason there was an opportunity is because I grew, and it was hard work, and we didn't get the results that we wanted. But now, as I look back on that team, that program, they are getting the results.
Right.
So I know that I dug the hole. You know what I mean? I did the work, and they're doing work as well. But I know that I was a part of that, you know? And so for me as a coach at all the places I've been, I understand that I might not see it in my time in that place, in that seat, but it's like one of the books that I read, Good to Great. Mm-hmm. And so when you read that book, it talks about the fact that the leader is building a clock, you know. And so when you build the clock, it lives past you, it lives past your time. And so for me, it's that commitment. And how do I know that is happening? Mm-hmm. It's hard, but I look closely. If you look deeply, you can see the impact that you're making. You can see the changes that you're making, because you talk about, it's what coaches always say this, it's what you emphasize. You emphasize You get what you emphasize. So if you emphasize selflessness, you start to see it. Sometimes players and even young administrators and young coaches, they act like they're not listening, but they're listening. Because over the course of time, you start to see it. You start to see the fruit. Sometimes, it doesn't totally blossom, but if you look closely at the things that you are emphasizing, then you'll see, because you know what you're looking for. Listen, we're going to be strong. We're going to be tough. We're going to be selfless, right? So I'm looking for those things. There'll be some other byproducts along the way, but these are the things that and you can't stress like 13 things. Have 3, have 4 things. Again, especially in some of the situations that I've been in where, listen, we don't have talent. We have not been successful. Okay, what can I give them that they can hold on to, right? I can't give them all these things. They've proven they can't handle that much. But let me give you 2 or 3, and we're going to emphasize those, and then we're going to build on those things. Right. And here at Kansas State, you talk about Gene. Gene is, and I lead through stories. So when I was at North Dakota State, actually when I was walking out the door, so the athletic director to me as a young coach, he's like the principal. You don't want to go into the athletic director's office, right? That was a mistake. There's a lot of wisdom in the athletic director's office, And so on my way to go to another university, I stopped in and I talked to Gene. And Gene is very personable. You have anyone can talk to him.
Right.
But as a young coach, he's a principal. Nope.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Yep.
Well, talked to Gene, and Gene said to me at North Dakota State at this time, he said, Van, I think we need more diversity on this staff, in this athletic department. We do. And I'm committed to that. Well, guess what? I'm in the principal's office. I'm going to shake my head and agree with what the principal says. But when I left and I look back a couple years later, I did see diversity on the staff. And he didn't owe that to me. I was gone, but he said that, and he made that happen. And when I came to Kansas State with Gene here, I see the programs that we have on our athletic department staff, and I see the things that he pushes, and so I know that's who he is. And so you talk about making an impact where you are, that's what I've learned from him. And really that's kind of what I push. And I've had the opportunity to see it after I've left many places,
Well, I really think you made a good point. It sounded like you overcame a fear of going to the principal's office.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a big part about being a leader is not being scared of the fear or the uncomfortable feelings or conversations that may come. I really do think that we talk a lot about good leadership, but we can learn from bad leadership too. And I think we've all had some leaders that haven't been so great. But everyone brings something to the table. And so, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And staying the same isn't an option. Right. That's really what I look when there's a bad leader or a good leader. I don't like to put them into different boxes. It's how are we going to lead this program with what we have and the team that we have on this bus, and some people might need to get off. Some people might need to, change their attitude or their work a little bit. But I think you really did a nice job telling the viewers or people that are listening about Gene Taylor, because I can't say enough great things about him, and I'm so excited to see what you guys accomplish. I'm taking notes myself.
Yeah, Gene. The check needs to be in the mail. We just did a commercial.
Hey, I learned from the best. Let me tell you.
Well, Erin, I do appreciate your time, and it was fabulous getting to know you. We've exchanged messages a few times, but now this experience makes those messages even more real. I'm really excited to be able to watch your career. You know, listen, I'm telling you, you're gonna do great things because we're on Zoom, and I feel your passion. Right, you're here to change the world, and I think that's the mark of a great leader, to be honest with that, to own that, and to let that be your driving force.
Yep.
So,
And while this is a vocation for us, I feel your heart and passion through this time that we've had together, and I feed off of that. And that's why I just want to say, like, keep doing what you're doing, having these conversations, working with these minds that are gonna go change the world.
right.
You know, and that's what we do. The job and how we make this world better is leave the world better than our ancestors had it. And so that's something that I take a lot of pride in myself, is how we can do that, and that's together. And that's why I'm so excited to watch your career. We are going to kick this out of the park and make,
There we go.
college athletics just a place that people can thrive and be themselves, and also change society and the social injustice that need to be talked about more regularly than they have in the past. And that's where it starts. It's right here. It's right now.
Right.